Marina 14, an isolated boat slip at the edge of the harbor. The weathered dock planks creak underfoot, leading to a single 40-foot cabin cruiser named the Wanderlust, its white hull stained with green algae at the waterline. The boat's previous owner, a retired man named Carl, disappeared from it last fall. The police found his coffee still warm in the galley, his wallet on the table, but no sign of struggle. Now, people staying on the boat report things moved in the night. Footprints of wet silt on the deck, and the feeling of another person's weight shifting in the dark. Tonight, I'm spending the night aboard, recording every sound. My cousin Leo asked me to house sit or boat sit for a week while he was on a business trip. He'd just bought the Wanderlust at auction, a steal, he said, despite its history. He joked that the weird vibe was just part of the charm. The marina was quiet, mostly summer people who hadn't returned yet, so my nearest neighbors were 3 empty slips down. The first night was uneventful, just the gentle lap of water and the distant groan of dock lines. The second night is when I noticed the first thing. I'd gone ashore to use the marina's restroom. When I came back, the sliding door to the main cabin, which I'd definitively closed and locked, was cracked open about an inch. A cold, damp smell wafted out. I stood on the dock for a full minute listening. Nothing. I convinced myself I'd just forgotten to pull it shut. The lock was tricky. I went inside, checked every closet, and the engine compartment, empty. The next afternoon, my neighbor, an old sailor named Marty, motored past in his dinghy. He cut his engine and floated closer, in a hurried tone. "You staying on Carl's old boat?" he asked. I nodded. He looked at the Wanderlust, then back at me, his face grim. "You know he didn't just vanish, right? He's still around here somewhere." He didn't elaborate, just started his engine and puttered away. The comment settled in my gut like a stone. That night, the noises started, not the normal boat sounds. These were precise. A soft click from the direction of the navigation station, a gentle scrape, like a drawer being quietly opened. From the forward cabin, the one I was using as a bedroom, I lay frozen in the V-berth, my heart hammering against my ribs. I'd locked the boat's main hatch. I'd checked. The only way in was through that sliding door or the hatch, both of which made a racket, unless someone was already inside. I spent the next day in the sunlight, trying to shake the feeling. I decided to do a full inventory, to prove to myself nothing was amiss. Leo had shown me the emergency gear, a life raft in a canister on the stern, flare gun in a cockpit locker, first aid kit under the salon settee. I opened the locker. The flare gun was there, but the orange plastic case was open, and one of the flares was missing. My blood went cold. This wasn't a forgetful mistake. I tore the boat apart. In the deepest drawer of the galley, tucked behind pots, I found a Ziploc bag. Inside was a protein bar wrapper, an empty water bottle, and a cheap disposable lighter. None of it was mine. The items were dry, but the bag had a faint smear of mud or silt at the bottom. I called Leo, my hands shaking. He sounded distracted, annoyed. "Look, it's an old boat," he said. "Previous owner probably left that junk. And the flare? Maybe I miscounted. Just relax. It's a safe marina." His dismissal made me feel crazy. But I knew. I decided to set a trap. Before dusk, I took a fine layer of flour from the galley and dusted it lightly on the sole of the cockpit, just inside the sliding door. Invisible, quiet alarm. If anyone came in, they'd leave footprints. I then took the biggest knife from the galley block and locked myself in the forward cabin, jamming the small door shut with a wedge of wood. I must have dozed off. The sound that woke me wasn't loud. It was the absence of sound. The gentle rocking of the boat had stopped. We were no longer floating freely. We were pressed against something solid. I sat up in the dark. The digital clock read 3:14 a.m. I listened. Silence. Then a faint, wet, dragging sound on the deck above my head. Something heavy was being pulled across the non-skid surface. I crept to the cabin door, removed the wedge, and cracked it open. The main salon was pitch black. The door to the cockpit was closed. My flour trap was out there. I had to look. I inched out, knife held uselessly in front of me. The moonlight through the windows provided just enough gray light to see the floor. The floor was disturbed, not by a clean footprint, but by a messy, sweeping drag mark, as if someone had entered and then carefully tried to wipe the powder away with their foot. It led toward the stern, toward the emergency locker. That's when I heard the breathing, not mine. It was a low, wet, rhythmic sound coming from the aft cabin, the one Leo used as storage, filled with sails and spare parts. The door was always closed. Now it was open, a black slit. I had no phone service out on the water. The VHF radio was in the salon. My plan, my only plan, was to get to it, call a mayday, and get off this boat. I moved sideways, my back against the bulkhead, toward the radio mounted by the helm. My hand found the microphone. I clicked the button. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is the vessel Wanderlust at Marina 14. I have an intruder. Static hissed back. I looked down. The power light on the radio was dark. The entire console was dead. Someone had disconnected the battery switch. A soft, guttural chuckle came from the aft cabin doorway. I ran. Not to the locked main hatch, but to the forward cabin, my sanctuary. I slammed the door, reinserted the wedge, and backed into the corner, knife raised. I waited for the handle to turn. For an impact, nothing happened. The boat creaked. Water lapped. 10 minutes passed. 20. The tension was a wire pulled taut in my chest. Maybe they'd gone, jumped overboard. I needed to see. The forward cabin had a small porthole looking out toward the bow. If I could peek, maybe I could spot someone on the dock. I knelt on the bed and slowly unscrewed the brass latch, pulling the heavy glass inward. A face was already there, pressed against the opening from the outside. A man's face, gaunt and streaked with harbor filth, his eyes wide and unblinking. He was hanging off the side of the boat, his body in the water, just to look in at me, his mouth stretched into a rotten smile. Whispering, "Carl's home," he breathed, the smell of decay and salt water flooding through the porthole. I screamed and fell backward, scrambling away. I heard a splash. He'd let go. I rushed to the door, tore the wedge free, and burst into the salon. I didn't think. I just moved. I unlocked the main hatch, flung it open, and stumbled onto the dock, falling to my knees. I didn't look back. I ran down that long, creaking dock, the sounds of my own sobs echoing in the silent night. The police found nothing, of course. No fingerprints. The missing flare was never located. They suggested it was a homeless person living on the abandoned boats, and I'd scared him off. Leo was furious about the mess, the flour everywhere. He sold the Wanderlust a month later. But I know what I saw, and I know what he said. That man wasn't looking for a place to sleep. He was coming home. The horror isn't just about someone hiding on your property. It's about them believing it's theirs, that you are the guest, and that they can come back anytime, rising from the dark water right outside your window to reclaim what they think belongs to them. See you in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe.